Good day. I'm here to drop in for the final week of Panchakarma. This is our first live to kick off the week where we are looking at what we can do to sort of bring ourselves back to center when everything feels like it's been thrown up in the air. And of course, for the courses that we're moving through that are in conjunction with the community Panchakarma at Broad Coven. Hello, I see somebody's here. I'm turning on comments. We're looking at that rescue remedy, okay? So I thought we would just do something that's basically like the Revolution report, but I'm going to call it the Reality Tunnel report. It's a little bit different of a twist, a little more disco, a little more Discordian mindset, if there even is a mindset. That's almost like an it's almost like an oxymoron, you know what I'm saying? It's like there's no real set point with the mind when it comes to Discordianism. And I wanted to just touch base with this. I also really wanted to bring in a read that'll just kind of like look at the energies in play for this week. And I also cast an I Ching for us. I was going to bring it in on the live we did with the fabulous Cal Garrison yesterday, which was a real spirited conversation. And, you know, exemplifies the way it can be kind of like a messy process to get through conversations when there's two different ways of communicating or two different mindsets. And also ways we can learn, you know, from each other through that process. Okay, so both Cal and I got insights from that experience. And it's always good, right? It's always a good mirror. And it's good to see it in action. And so I just felt really compelled to touch in on that I Ching casting for the collective today, because I did the casting in mind with how can we best move through Scorpio season and what do we really need to be mindful of at this time. So I'm going to get some cards on the table. Ted's in approval of this. I'm just going to get some cards on the table, and we're going to go ahead and just dive into that material that came in with the I Ching. We got number 37 is where we're at right now. We are in the process of active change, though, which is good. We don't have stagnancy. We're not in a place of the unchanging with that hexagram as we had the situation be a couple weeks back. We have Qian Zhen, the family. And I want to bring this in because the whole theme is very much in alignment with what we're focusing on this week, which is support. Not only the support that we can give each other, but also the support that it's important to reach out for and connect with in our community and what we're taking in, because we know that what goes in or decreases also leads to an increase. So this is something to be really mindful of, even as we're in a process of releasing things in Scorpio season. We're letting things go. We're shedding those old skins. We're starting to get a new view. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a rocky process or a destabilizing process. Along the way, we're also emptying. And this is something to be mindful of, because as we empty, we create a space that now can be filled with something else. And so this is when it becomes so essential to focus on mindset. And I wanted to bring mindset in because it's something that Amanda Scopin brought in with the community challenge here at Broad Coven that she also has going on over on Facebook. If you're over there, look her up, Amanda Scopin, SCOPEN. I believe she has those updates she's doing on her Facebook public, so you can drop in a comment. You can also send a friend request her way, but mindset is super important when we're going through anything, especially when we're going through something very challenging. So thought this would be a good time to sort of drop in with the principles of Discordianism, since we are working with chaos. And as Cal brought in the other day, we got Eris right up on that north node of Aries, okay, 4:44 on the clock when I brought that in. So yeah, you know, it's a wild time, but the point of it being on that Aries point for me really translates to such an opportunity for innovation and creativity, even within crumbling structures, right? And so I wanted to bring this piece in because Chia Jen focuses all on the family. And when we're thinking of the family, this isn't necessarily, you know, the family you're born into, although it certainly could be. It absolutely could be working with your ancestors, getting familiar with your bloodline and the way that can be a support to you. But even going beyond that, it's the soulmates that you connect with in this life, all right? The ones that come onto your path that have an experience to share with you. Some of those experiences are bitter, some of those experiences are sweet, but they all have value and they're all necessary as part of our soul's evolution. So we really should value each of these experiences, even when it's kind of rough, right? We're always presented with this choice of what is my responsibility in this situation? What am I able to respond to in this situation? What does that look like? And sometimes that does mean we have to pull our energy within ourselves. We have to take some time to build the light within ourselves, which the two changing lines we got in this hexagram in the 5th and 6th positions changes this hexagram to 36, which is Ming Yi, brightness hiding. Okay, so that's when you still have your light. Your light hasn't gone anywhere, just like when the sun goes down. But there's a need for you to decrease. In other words, to move more into the yin aspect, the more receptive aspect, and come into this place of just allowing, right? Allowing, and also stillness, maybe not being as social, not being as active as we kind of like brought in with that 9 degrees Sabian symbol that can help us really navigate the waters of this Scorpion territory as we're moving through this season. And avoid the stinger, right? We don't have to receive the stinger in such a way where it's like a fatal blow. And instead, it can be something that can be transformational for us, even as we're encountering things that maybe, ooh, you know, they got a sharp edge to them, right? You know, and sometimes the truth is like that. Sometimes the truth is, you know, gentle and sweet, and it's something that awakens in you, kind of like a rose, like unfurling its petals. And sometimes truth like hits you upside the head, you know, it can be very sharp, it can cut you, you know. But when it comes through, whatever that truth is, at least what is true for you, it gives you a certain key that gives you another level of understanding. And so we're trying to come into this unity consciousness, but along that way, you know, it can be very challenging because the first thing that happens anytime you start to focus on, well, I want to come into unity, and this can be on more of a microscopic level, like I want to come into unity with this friend or with this lover or, you know, with this family member that I've had a falling out with, or it can be on a more like expansive level where you're looking at the global community, like how can I make the world smaller? How can we get beyond division points? But it always starts as a very small movement. It starts as a small movement that radiates outward, and it always encourages action. It always encourages an expression. That's just the natural nature of the creative life force of Shakti. It demands to be expressed. And so in order for that to happen, there needs to be a clear channel for the energy to manifest through. And I'm really viewing that channel as, of course, because we look at it on all stratums of being. It's not just the channel of, you know, your chakra system. Hey, you could look at the channel of your digestive system. It starts at your mouth and you know where it ends. You know what I'm saying? But it's all one continuous channel there. So digestion is important too. Okay. We've talked about that with Ayurveda. It's all interconnected. Mind, body, spirit, it's all playing out on all stratums of being at all time, and same with everybody else. And we're all in this together, even though we're all wearing different costumes, different earth suits, and we have our own little roles to play. And those roles are interchangeable. You know, you don't have to be stuck to any BS, any belief system. You don't have to be stuck in any set role. You are a constantly evolving creative being. And once you really come to the realization of this, the awakening of this, and once you do, it's sort of inevitable that your mind goes more to a unity consciousness, because unity is creation. In fact, it just is the nature of reality. All of life exists. Everything you see exists because of unity. A proton, a neutron, an electron in and of themselves, like, okay, but to bring something into existence, they all need to come together. They all need to work synergistically with each other. And it's the same thing with life on Earth. You know, you need the water in order for there to be life, and there wouldn't be mountains if it weren't for the water and the winds. And, you know, we need the vegetation and everything to grow that can feed us and nurture us. You know, it's that circle of life. It makes me think of the BS also, you know, sometimes it takes some BS to make the flowers grow, and that makes me think of South Park and the circle of poo. I have to bring it in. And that kind of ties into Ayurveda as well, you know, just pay attention to how are you releasing. You know, we talk about this stuff in Ayurveda, everything's on the table, but if you're in a space where you're really in a fear space, you're really contracted, you got a lot of anxiety, that can lead to, you know, not being able to, like, you know, not being able to keep that digestive channel free because everything gets kind of stuck and backed up, you know. Likewise, if you're too hot, if you're too inflamed, if you got too much going on where you're running too much of that pitta energy and you're very aggressive, then you can have the opposite, right? You can have this quality where you're very inflammatory, so quick to pop off, quick to get frustrated, and then you might, you know, let go of stuff too fast out of both ends, all right? You might fire off your words and you might find yourself running to the bathroom all the time. So all of this stuff plays out. It may seem silly, you know, to talk about it like that, but it really is true. It's all part of what is being created. It always starts first in the ether and it comes down, draws down through that channel into the mind as a thought. This is the process of manifestation. I'm bringing this in because when we quest for the final jewel of the Tuatha De Danann, when we're going for that stone of destiny, Liabil, we're going to be focusing on the art of manifestation. Like, we're going to be really getting into alchemy, and it'll be fun. We'll all pick something that we're really aiming for, and that's going to be different for each of us. We each have a different destiny to unlock, okay? But in order to get there, we have to be very mindful of everything that we're taking in. And so sometimes to do that, we might experience some kind of reversal in our lives. There might be some kind of roadblock on our path to success or to our destiny, or some kind of healing we're hoping to receive. And you can hear a lot of messages out there, especially in tarot land, that's like, oh, well, it's their karma. It's their karma. It's like, you know what? You're all going through karma. It's actually just dharma, and it's actually just the natural way that life flows. For whatever is increased will surely go through a subsequent decrease. And it has nothing to do with anything being wrong. Sometimes there's something that's served for a certain passage of your growth, but then you need to go back in and you need to review. You're not meant to stay in there. You're not meant to hold that light in eternally, but you're meant to use that as like a center balancing point, you know, to get in touch with what is this light that I'm building? And is there something I need to reflect on here? Is there something that maybe I need to look at about myself, because I'm seeing this challenge outside of myself? So that means there's something coming up in here, because that's often what pain is, or discomfort is it's sign to like pay attention. So if we can pay attention, then we can like grok what's getting in the way of a clear manifestation. I mean, we really can create whatever reality we want. And the thing is that as we're creating our reality, we get a lot of stuff that gets in the way. And some of that is stuff that we can't see. And some of that is stuff that was programmed by our roots, our foundation. It was programmed by our family. And we get a severe hunger for control. We got the zombie here. The way the foundations of the past can rise up out of that subconscious terrain, the subterranean terrain, and have a stronghold on us and want to really, you know, keep us stuck to the old way. And certainly it applies to all foundations, the foundation of society. It's also the foundation within ourselves. You know, what is our BS? What are our belief systems? How did they get there? We were indoctrinated into many things. A lot of this happened through our educational system, certainly through our political system, also just our cultural programming, you name it. You know, there's so many things that create these borders and these dividing lines between us and the knowing that we're really everything, and that everything we're seeing is kind of like this mock-up, you know. It's not really as real as we think it is. In fact, we could pass through it if we really wanted to. You could walk through the wall if you wanted to. It's just the fact that you believe that if you walk through that wall is going to be, you know, a solid structure. It's going to stop you. You've had this programmed into you for a long time, so you've seen it this way. You have no other way of seeing it. And so it's very real and entrenched, and it's hard to unravel that. But you hear these experiences, right? You hear these experiences of mystics, yogis, people who've worked to an advanced level who are able to experience these types of things. And I myself, I've experienced some interesting things that there aren't rational explanations for, or defy, you know, what is supposed to be possible. And that's what happens as you start to unravel, you know, your belief systems. You really realize that, wait a minute, you know, I can change things. And I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people are bumping up against this. It's natural with Pluto and Capricorn, okay? It's like the old clashing against the new. And so the old will always clamor for control, even within yourself, even as you desire to kind of like reach for something more, expand your horizons and broaden your view. There's still going to be the part of yourself that's going to want to like run back to what feels familiar to you, even if you can recognize in some way it might be dysfunctional, in some way it might not best serve you, but it's like, it's what you know, okay? So it becomes easier to kind of like just go, well, this is safer, you know, because as you step into the truth that, wait a minute, wait, I'm responsible for creating my reality. That doesn't mean that some people aren't born into challenging circumstances, certainly. And it doesn't mean, because of the societal programming out there, that some people might have a tougher road to hoe. That's true. But is that always the case? And if you're telling yourself it's the case, and if you're downloading that programming, then it certainly will be the case. And it makes things very difficult to move forward just in your life, in your personal life. And I think it's so important that we, you know, bring in that spirit of having something to hope for, because if you don't have any motion, you know, emotion, that's interesting. Emotion, you know, it's kind of like the emotion, it starts within, but it's supposed to encourage emotion, you know, it's supposed to flow. It's not supposed to stay stuck within you and ping pong around there. That's just the cycle of manifestation. You know, you get it, it comes in as an inspiration, you get the idea, and then, you know, you start to sit with the idea, you start to think about how you would execute it. That's kind of invoking a bit of that fire energy. It's getting the fire cooking, right? But you got to marry it with the feeling, with the heart, you know. If you're not really in it, then you'll kind of just let it, you know, pass you by. But it's a good litmus test for what you're really invested in, what you're not, and what you're wanting to create. But once you got passion and once you got purpose, like there's no stopping you. Even when you have challenges, it will be a call for you instead to innovate, or see it as something that maybe you're missing, or there's a lesson for you to learn here that you can grok. And it's no longer viewed as something that's negative, but it's something that's positive. And so I thought it was really interesting that this Chia Gen came in family for us for moving through Scorpio season, because I think it really mirrors this issue of control, the way that sometimes the structures that are familiar to us, our roots, are the very thing that's controlling us, whether it's from a story we received, you know, through our cultural programming, or whether it's what we always heard our parents saying when we were growing up, or even when I look at that, you know, foundational support, going back to the past, like when you were in school, just the way you were educated, what you were taught, you know, these things aren't easily sloughed off, and they take work. And a lot of people have idealism about the age of Aquarius, and it's wonderful, but we already saw, you know, in the 60s what happens if the dawning of the age of Aquarius arrives upon you, and you're just all in that, you know, energy of, oh, it can be anything, and sort of this altruistic, you know, high-minded, which is wonderful. It's beautiful to have a vision, but if the vision doesn't have any roots, it can just completely fall apart. And that starts within us. You know, you have to think about, especially if you're wanting to step into more expansion in your life, there's a way to do that, that you want to build it on a new foundation, not the same foundation you had in the past, because that's the faulty foundation that's been causing all the blockages in your life, right? So Ted just said yes. You need to go outside? Okay, hold on, Bubba. Hold on. Ted's got his shirt on because it's cold outside. We just had our first like storm blowing in here. So I just want to make sure he doesn't pee on his shirt. Yeah, so this is a very important piece, just looking at our foundational issues and going inside and thinking about that. What will really support me most at this time? And that's sort of, I think, the real focus of this week with what we're doing with Panchakarma, also with the Cauldron of Dagda. It's important. What I'm really learning myself with us moving through this terrain with the Cauldron of Dagda is the way that it can be so, it can be so difficult sometimes to even know what will give you the right support, right? You know, especially if you're opening up to a new state of consciousness, or you're kind of having your mind blown. You're having sort of like an activation, an awakening of your intuition, or you feel like you're really growing spiritually in some way. There can be a period where you kind of enter that hermit energy and it takes you to this internalized place, and you may feel like you're really breaking from the pack, like the pack that you've called your family, whether that's by blood or by choice. You may also feel like there's a lot of clashing. Interesting, it's bringing in that Clash of the Titans theme, right? Because the Titans were taken down by the kids, all right? So it's sort of like the same piece of you know, that clashing between what's traditional and maybe the aspect of you that people are used to witnessing, and now you've gone to a deeper level where you're showing more of who you are. You're becoming more stronger within who you are and more sure of your own vision that you have and your own dreams and your own goals. And it may be very much at odds with other people. It may be very much at odds with the frickin' world, okay? But with that Eris energy up there on the Aries point, I mean, come on. Eris is like, get creative with it, play with it. You know, what do you want to create? You can alchemize this. And it's about being the one who's like, okay, you know, I'll be the first to step out of the gate. Will some people choose to stay down in the Libra South Node, going in, you know, the circular route? That was the Sabian symbol that came in, which was very interesting, that I was talking to Cal about. You know, it's like this traveling in circles. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. It's better if more of us don't. You know, the more of us that can start to go, okay, you know, I'm getting really clear. I'm choosing growth. I'm going to be brave, because that's what Aries does. Aries is brave, crossing this energy. Yeah, look what we got. We got the black cat. Fortune meets opportunity. So when we break from this control, when we stop being a zombie, you know, we stop just phoning it in, you know, moving through life on autopilot because it keeps everything nice and tidy. But we've talked about this. How much have we talked about this? We've talked about, you know, the only difference between a rut and a grave is its dimensions. It's like, are you really living? You know, I've been through this space. I've been zombified before, you know, faces white, eyes are tired. I don't know, the alien sex being references have been coming in a lot lately. I used to love listening to alien sex being. It's been a while since I heard that song, but yeah, we've all been zombified before, you know, and there's a lot of people kind of walking around like that. I think just because there's been a huge tower, we've had a huge shift in collective consciousness. It happened for all of us. We all went through that together, and it really got us all thinking about what really has meaning at this time, okay? And so I feel like this is so fitting. This is so fitting with this I Ching hexagram that came in for us and moving through Scorpio season, this Chia Jin family, whose action is support, okay? So certainly with what we're moving through with Panchakarma this week, it's about really shoring up your support, providing the support that you can provide for yourself, which sometimes means, you know, laying down those good boundaries and giving yourself time to dream and to focus on the things that are really fulfilling you or inspiring you. And if you don't know how to do those things yet, because you have to learn new things, and it gives you the opportunity to start researching. And If you have the excuse that you're like, well, I don't have money to go to school or what, well, you can still start to research it. You'd be surprised as you start to shift your focus and you're like, okay, I know that I'm really interested in this. And maybe currently in this moment, I'm missing XYZ, you know, in order to make ABC happen. All right, that's fine. Don't put the cart before the horse. You can just simply start with where you're at and say, well, for right now, like let's say you wanted to go to school, film school, all right? Let's say you wanted to go to film school because you have this vision of making a film that's going to change everybody's lives, okay? You want to get some kind of important message out there, but you have no experience in this medium. You don't know what you're doing. You've never done anything like this before. Well, you got to start somewhere. So you start with where you're at. And it's very simple. You can think outside the box. Well, first of all, you could go on YouTube. You could do a simple search like filmmaking 101, you know, learn what you need. And then you can start to learn like what is the best, you know, equipment to have that is also where you're at, you know, what could be most accessible for you starting out. Look at what would be the best beginner like sort of package for filmmaking. Then if you really want to go to school and you want to learn techniques, so you can start researching that. When you make a decision, when you align with your passion and your purpose, and you start taking whatever action you can, no matter how small it is, okay, in your own life, this has a ripple effect. Now, instead of you focusing on what you can't do, you're focusing on what you can do. And that's supportive in and of itself. It also allows this like channel to open up, your reality tunnel to open up, and it like clears the BS out of your reality tunnel that you've clogged up in there so nothing was flowing. Now you can get things moving. Now you can see a way through. It might not be, you know, the way you imagine it, but it still is progress. And I'll tell you what you find is then you're like tapping into this like stream of some would call it abundance, you know, consciousness, manifestation consciousness. It's really becoming aware of the fact in a very tangible, visceral way, not just like, oh, I know that I can manifest my reality. I know that it's all one energy. No, it's embodying it. It's actually having the magician awaken within you and realizing, oh, wow, no, I can really see this happening in real time. Because as soon as you take your focus away from what you don't have or what doesn't work, see, as long as you're focusing on what you don't have, that's all you can see. And once it's observable to you on the quantum field, okay, then you're also nurturing that with your feeling. This is like manifestation 101. All you're feeling is the lack. So all you see is more lack. It continues to create more lack in your life. It continues to create more blockages in your life. If you're looking at everything that's, you know, screwed up in the world, and there's a lot that needs to be addressed, certainly it's not about having this naivety. It's not about being a cheerleader. It's not a rallying cry. That's not what it is. It's actually being very stoic in a sense, but marrying it at the same time with this sense of folly and the spirit of the fool and the playfulness of the adventure of it. Like, wow, but what an opportunity. Oh, this is a colossal mess out here on planet Earth. We're looking really expansively at this, but you can certainly apply it to the microscopic, you know, aspect of your own role in this grand theater of life, okay? But looking out there like that, okay, it's a big, colossal, infinite mess. Wow. What if I instead got excited about there's an opportunity to get really creative here, really innovative here about playing your part in creating a solution? And what does that look like? Do you know? And 9 times out of 10, what it's going to be, maybe the odds are even better than that. I don't know. There's no absolutes, but 9 times out of 10, that thing that you're supposed to do that's going to help you play a part in really transforming life on planet Earth, not only for yourself, but for everybody else here, it's going to be that thing that lights you up. It's going to be that thing that excites you. And it's going to require you to dig to some really deep places inside of yourself and challenge some things that you've always said are, well, this is just the way it is. And along the way to love, we always bump up against fear, and love is the same thing as truth, which I always say is personal truth, okay? Because truth is kind of that ungraspable thing. It is a mystery, all right? And we each have our own version of it, and it doesn't make it any less true. Even where you don't agree with somebody else's truth, it doesn't really matter. It's like, well, it's their truth. And often I'll find that, you know, when I'm talking to somebody and when there's a disagreement, you know, and they'll tell me that they don't agree with me, and I say, that's okay. You know, it kind of throws people off because people want it. They expect the fight. They expect the fight. But see, that's a little bit like a, you know, jinjitsu. It's like, oh, no, just flow with it, man. Like, you know, martial arts teaches you that. Trees teach you that too, right? They don't like push back against the wind. They go, okay, well, you disagree. All right. It's just a big sea, and we all have our own perceptions and our own reality tunnels that we're looking through, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Oh, cool. Okay, cool. You have a different perspective. What's that perspective? And you can move through this area, and you can kind of like understand that even within very different modes of expression or viewpoints, that you can still somehow arrive at a connecting point. And it's very fascinating. It's a fascinating process. And it's an interesting way to kind of look at even what's kind of at unrest in the world, right? But to get to that place, especially when you're first opening up into this state of expansion where you can really step into the empowerment of manifesting. And when you get it dialed in, I'm telling you, when you get it dialed in, you can, for those of you who are really fascinated with magic, I want to speak to you right now because there's a lot of people that are fascinated with magic. They are fascinated with, you know, how do you just pull something out of thin air? How do you pull a rabbit out of the hat? You don't need anything. You don't need to call up any circle. You don't need to, it's certainly, you can infuse it with more energy. I enjoy it. It's playful. It's not necessary. You can do it on the spot. You can close your eyes. You can focus. You can see something. You can fuel it with your energy, and boom, later that day it'll happen. But it takes a while to get to that point. It doesn't happen overnight. And in order to be in that place, you have to be in this real place of just total openness, trust, you know, mostly trust in what's coming through you, okay? And love. I mean, you can't have trust without love. And the thing with love is, along the way to love and being in that place, which I really view love as like the ultimate allowing, because the love just allows things to be what they are. You know, there's no, you can't be that way. You can't be that way. It's an allowing, it's a freedom. And this is really kind of the core issue of what's destabilizing all of us, you know, on planet Earth, is the lack of love. Everybody wants people to conform to their idea of what they think fulfillment is, or what they think love is. But at the end of the day, love is all inclusive. Love is an outlaw, you know, like Tom Robbins says, you can't control love. You can't put a label on love. Love is just the quality, the basis of all of reality. Everything is interrelational. Everything is even sexual, if you want to look at it that way. All of life exists because of that joining together of, you know, the masculine, the feminine principle, bringing life into being. And blockage energy. It's so interesting when the blocks come in when you're talking about things. I always find that fascinating. And there's that energy too. There's that energy out there in the universe that's like, no, you know, we're not going to talk about this. We like the way things are, because some people who are very tapped into manifestation, okay, let's just say the people at the top, they know how to work with these manifestations, all right? And the thing we have to be aware of with these manifestations, which is what we're looking at with Chia Jen moving line in the 6th place, which we got, is how sometimes when you get to the very top of that success, like, you can distort that power. It can becomes a desire to, right, have control, to download the programming, right? Hello, Michael Jackson. You know, you can get to this point where you want to have, you know, all the power, it's all mine. That's when we get the imbalance that we have today, right? Where we have this mindset of the division. It's the haves and the have-nots. It's the 1% and the meh. Well, all that is these are just, you know, magicians who like took their awareness. You don't reach that level of success, okay? Even if you were born into it, you come from a lineage of people who knew how to manifest. You did. You know, this is where all that stuff comes in about the Illuminati and the Freemasons and all of that. It's just, you know, you don't reach that pinnacle of success without really understanding how to manifest. You just don't. And every person that's like a success story, let's say, let's just look at it through something that's very like rooted in just mundane reality. You don't reach that pinnacle of success in day-to-day life if you don't get born into it, okay? If it's not about who you know, without really facing so many doors slamming in your face, and somehow within that constant rejection, constant what would be perceived as failure, still holding firm to your vision and being totally unshakable. And you'll hear it if you talk to people who had to, you know, really strive to get to this success. They will tell you that. Like, I can't tell you how long I had to fight to get to this place. And I couldn't give up. And that's because they had that thing. They had passion and they had purpose. Passion and purpose will alleviate you of everything. I'm telling you. If you're struggling, if you're trying to recover from some kind of addiction, you know, again, here comes support, you know, the need to call in, you know, the support of a support group maybe, or maybe going and talking to a therapist. But it's also about making sure you're pulling in the right kind of people socially, looking at the three masters in the art gallery, right, to tap into your creative energy. You want to make sure that you're pouring, oh, interesting. I wouldn't say pouring, I meant to say pulling people in, but yeah, they pour into you. Think of what those people pour into you. That might be a better way to look at it, you know? What do these people pour into you? Because what they pour into you is what's going to be nurturing your growth. So if you're, let's use this example. I don't know why it's coming in. Lately, alcohol has been coming in quite a bit. I'm not sure why, but we're going to flow with it, okay? So let's say you got an issue with alcohol, all right? Maybe alcoholism runs in your family. So this might look like, for support, you might need to decrease, okay? Make yourself smaller, hide the light, as in Ming Yi, okay? You might need to pull within a little bit, pull your energy back, so you can really like kind of create a little sense of separation if you know that there's people around you that are actively involved in this kind of lifestyle. It's not that you are rejecting them per se. It's just understanding this is not a supportive influence for me at this time. Will it change? We hope so, right? When we hope that everybody heals, grows, changes in such a healthy way that their movement through life is progressive and that it's not like zombie-fied, that they're not just going through the motions of life. But you have to keep growing, right? So you might need to do that initially and find the right kinds of support, the right sources of support to pull in. This also means, you know, connecting with new people and people who pour into you in a different sort of way. So it's so essential at this time that we sort of look around, like just socially, who am I connecting with? You know, who gives me that sense of support that I'm really needing in my life? And we see here, Black Cat, fortune meets opportunity. So this is the piece where maybe something on the surface appears like, oh, this is negative, you know, or I feel like I'm the black cat, you know, I feel like I was born under a bad sign, or I feel like, you know, maybe for some of you, you're rising up out of an old, you know, identity, an old reputation. You feel like your reputation precedes you and it doesn't even give you a fair shot. And if that's the case, if you're dealing with a lot of people who just have a preconceived notion of you, and so you find yourself tempted to just, well, I guess I'll just stay here so I can still have these people around me. Maybe it's time to really think about being like that hermit and going within so you can build the light and let it guide you on your path forward. You may walk alone for a little bit, but the thing is, as you go forward on this path, what's meant for you will greet you in a new way. And then as you grow and people see you grow and they see the tangible proof of you growing, then it also changes their perspective of you. And so change can happen either way. So always in any situation that you're dealing with, growth and aligning with what supports you is always going to be beneficial. Anything that supports you in your growth, that's the direction ahead. Those are the people to hang out with. Those are the habits to cultivate, because they make such a big difference in how we live our lives. And as we move through life in this way, it changes how we feel. And, you know, the better you feel, the better your quality of life. And the better your quality of life, the clearer the channel, the clearer your manifestations. I do want to touch on the piece about digestion, just because I brought it in. You know, really be mindful, especially if you are somebody who is doing a lot of alchemical work, if you are somebody who works with metaphysics, if you are somebody who is actively working to manifest something in your life the way that is so important, that you're eating food that really helps your body function at maximum levels. So be mindful of this, you know. If you eat a bunch of, you know, fast food, or if you're eating a bunch of highly processed stuff like that, that'll totally block your channels. It really will. It has an effect. It affects the quality of what can come through you. So this is about, you know, being mindful of those things too. What are you taking in physically? You know, just your habits. What are you taking in your environment? I mean, we talked about all this stuff, but it's important at this time, in particular with Chia Gen family, that we connect with people who remind us of who we are, you know, when we may have forgotten, because maybe we're dealing with a challenge or something feels a little testy. Yeah. Invisibility, authenticity. You may feel that to be true to yourself and what you feel inside, that you feel like you're like a little invisible. Maybe you feel like people don't get you, or maybe you have a truth that you're holding inside because you feel like nobody's going to get it. Nobody's going to be able to understand this. Nobody's going to be able to relate to it. And you might have to be invisible for a while, but that doesn't have to be a negative thing. I also see this as, you know, play with this a little bit. If you feel like you're in a situation where you're finding it hard to just have privacy to yourself, where you're finding it difficult to have that time where you can just kind of focus on yourself and do your inner work and get in touch with your heart and what it's calling forward in you. Or maybe you're working through something, wrestling with something, and your means of support is, I like alone time. You know, I like alone time. I need to be able to rest. I need to be able to spend time with myself. And I get to choose who I want to talk to that will offer support during that time. Despite who may want to offer the support, they just may not be the right person to support you. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe the energy just feels off. So you might want to kind of experiment with mocking up an invisibility cloak for yourself that's coming through. And it's really easy to do. I have to say, you can just simply close your eyes and turn your eyes up towards your third eye, right at that point between the eyebrows where that pineal gland is, okay? And you can just focus your attention there, and then envision like a cosmic web, okay? Like the cosmic web of creation, because what is above is also below, okay? And you can see like the center point of the web, and then imagine it just like spreading out in your consciousness. See it as like a web of light, okay? And you can envision it any way you want, and envision the energy pulsating in the web, like it's spreading out in all directions, above, below, you know. And as you work with this visualization, you can make it as big, as profound as you want it to be, okay? You can make it so big that it's interdimensional, right? There's no limitation to how far out you can take this. So start wherever you're at. It was 44:44 on the clock when I brought that in, okay? So no matter where you're at with it, okay, you can start small. It's okay. Just allow yourself to dip into this a little bit. Focus on the center of the web, okay? So you're gazing up at your third eye, just, you know, breathing, nice, relaxed. You have no distractions. And just envision yourself covered in this cloak that gives you invisibility. All right. Just experiment with it. I encourage you to experiment with it this week, because this week is all about moving through this place of really tending to yourself and understanding the kind of quality of space it's important to hold around any trauma you may have, or any activation you may have, or just when you're wanting that time to be in your own personal growth process. So I encourage you to experiment with that this week and watch what happens. And when you do this exercise and you watch how it changes your experience, then you might start to have it kind of click in your mind that, oh, wait a minute, I really can create things. And you can start playing with other things too, okay? But this is really important. I wanted to mention the two lines, the judgments for the two lines that we got for this particular hexagram, because I think they play a lot into what we need to be holding at the forefront of our conscious awareness at this time, because there's so much like doom and gloom out there, and there's so much that we see just sort of like in the media and what people talk about on social media. They can slant our perspective and kind of cause us to lose our focus, or we can get caught up in dramas or the problems of life, any of these things. And I really want to bring in the judgments for these two lines before I do a cut of the deck energy, because I feel like it's so significant. So line 5 that we got is, ooh, Ted really wants to exemplify this point. Y'all good, Ted? He started to fall asleep on his food bowl. Oh my goodness. Okay, line 5 is the sovereign's benevolence extends to the household, equals worry not, auspicious changes to grace. So it says, because one who guides the gathering is trusted, all prosper. Out of disorder arises ideal conditions for union. So again, if you're guiding the gathering of the energies that you're collecting, because you're moving from a place of your intuitive knowing and trust that, wait, I am the creator and I've had this experience, I've seen it, I've been able to call in this energy, then out of what seems chaos or disorder actually arrives the ideal conditions for bringing things together. And again, bringing in the manifestations. Okay, so this is something to be mindful of at this time. The way we focus our energy can have a lot to do with what we see reflected. In fact, it has everything to do with what we see reflected in our lives. And taking the action means we back it up. You know, we back it up with the choices we make. And then line 6 we got was relationship founded on mutual respect equals, in the end comes good fortune. Okay. Changes to 63 after completion. Now this piece is important, and that's that Ming Yi. And what's important about Ming Yi and I'm sorry. Is that 63? Yes, 63. What's important with Ming Yi? Oh no, we got 64. I'm sorry. And it influenced before. Which one is this? 36. Okay, totally different thing. My apologies. What happens when we're looking at after completion is it's the I'm just about to close it out. Yes, hi Angela. What happens with after completion is it's the image of a fox crossing the stream, and you only get to this higher vision if you actually make it to the other side. And the danger is that the fox gets wet, you know, in what was supposed to, like, you were supposed to build a bridge so you could get over it, but instead you kind of like keep looking behind, and so the building of the bridge never happens. You get your tail wet, you fall in the old stream of consciousness, and then all is lost. Okay, so this piece is very important. And this says here that ideally we lead by example. Everyone does their part, and then the entire team will prosper. All right, so this is the energy that is very much in play at this time. It's what's been coming through in all the downloads, in all the readings, in all the I Ching castings, is that we're meant to be active at this time. And that doesn't mean you need to be a revolutionary per se, okay? It doesn't mean you need to take on more than you feel personally responsible for. But it does mean be the revolutionary in your own life. And whatever dream or vision you have, even if it's just for your own personal fulfillment or to make your life better in some way, so you can move into a more empowered, positive mindset, or so you can heal something that's been troubling you for a long time and get free of it, or you can release yourself from an addiction or whatever it may be, then do that thing, man, because we know that we're part of the greater whole. And so what happens in you changes the ripples in that cosmic web of creation, and it changes everything. And we see it here, you know, it's like we can rise up out of this control. We can snap out of this zombified state of mind. We don't have to live our lives on autopilot. We can really awaken to this quality that, yes, I create my reality. And that means I got to take a hell of a lot of accountability, because it means that if something isn't working in my life or I'm finding a blockage, then it's me. It's me. I'm the obstacle. In some way, there's something that's coming up in me that I need to look at. And I don't need to think that that means I'm bad. It's not that at all. It's just that there's some new understanding I need to have. There's something that I need to be aware of. And for all you know, it may be really realizing how gifted you are, or how brilliant you are, or something so important that you have to offer that you need to bring into this world. So this is very important. We know that fortune meets opportunity, all right? Out of something which may look like bad luck on the surface, it's actually not bad. It's your BS that tells you it's bad. It's your BS that views it as like, this is a sentence. Well, it has to go down this way, and I'm going to tell this story. And because you tell yourself that story, it will. You know, it always ends up this way. Okay, it always will then. You know, and you don't learn that until you start really working with it. So we are going to be bringing a lot of that in here. We're going to be doing a lot of that work for the final quest. It's all going to be manifestation. We're actively going to manifest stuff. It's going to be fun. We're going to get into some interesting stuff. And I'm really taking it to a deeper level myself. And I've had pockets of it where I've been tapped in, really tapped in, where I've had a thought and I've watched reality morph in front of me. And then I've had times that I lose it, you know, because like the fox, I'll like get in the stream, my tail gets wet, and it's like, we gotta go. We gotta go and figure out what's coming up subconsciously that's blocking the way now, okay? But moving into that expansion, it can be a lot. So it requires support. So I would say this too, if you're somebody that's really growing and expanding and evolving, it also becomes essential to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who also want to grow and expand. It's not that you're turning your nose up at people who want to stay where they're at. It's that if the people who want to stay where they're at are infringing on your ability to continue to grow because they're creating blockages with their resistance to that, then there may need to be space for a while. And you may need to align yourself with other people who are actively focused on growing and evolving, because the energy is, you know, a positive momentum. It builds. It builds momentum. And when you start to move in that direction and you see the way so many people are kind of caught up in the matrix and the programming of the algorithm, and they're all over social media and they're fighting about things, and they feel like, no, there's this truth and you have to see that, and they're telling people what they believe, then you move into this position where you get caught up in that. If that's what your focus is all the time, it starts to run through your programming. It's all energetic. So this piece is something to be very mindful of, just who you choose to connect with. Connect with people who remember who they are. And in turn, they help remind you of who you are, that you do have the power to change your life, that you are capable, that you do have something to offer, that you are valued. Your life is important, and there's something you do have to contribute. And when you're around people like that, your life changes. Okay, so looking at the social piece, and also, you know, how are you spending your time? We've talked about all this stuff quite a bit, so I don't want to go into it in more length, but I really wanted to bring it in just in terms of what came in with the I Ching for moving through Scorpio season for us. And look at this right here on the split of the deck, the underworld, where all things pause and begin again. So yes, look at those pomegranate seeds. Persephone ate the pomegranate seeds, go down to the underworld and do the dance with Hades. It's very Pluto, it's very Scorpio, but she always rises. She doesn't stay down there. She doesn't stay in the darkness. She builds the light in the darkness. In fact, it's the same story mimicked in the rise of Inanna, you know, from Ishtar, you know, it's the same trip as Lilith. It's the same journey of rising up out of that, transformed, you know, transformed into the Empress energy or that Emperor energy, that Aries North node, where it's the initiatory cycle. And from this point of activating the will with passion and purpose, all things grow, right? And it says here, where all things pause and begin again. So yes, take pause, turn within, take pause, build your life, get clear your channel, really reflect what's getting in my way, what's getting in my way of me really feeling that quality I want to feel in my life, what things are just really bringing my energy down or making me feel rotten, you know, that they're not like a life building energy. They always make me feel kind of like down, you know, or a rundown, right? But on the other side of this, what do we got? Eternal love. Love is love is love. And it transcends physical death. Okay. So this is the peace of the interconnection. And I also see this piece of it can help us at those times also to tap into that deeper knowing, our ancestral wisdom. All right. So we can really call that forward in our earth walk and learn from those medicines too. You know, what are the dreams of our ancestors that were never able to be actualized? What is rising up in you that wants to be expressed? And sometimes to tap into those roots, you do need to get quiet. And this time of year, especially dealing with the underworld and Scorpio, and we recently had, you know, Dias de los Muertos, and we had Halloween, Samhain, all of these traditions. You know, we have the ancestors very front and center at this time. So tap into your ancestors for your grounding to really root this medicine. And that's it for today. I'm going to start keeping these much shorter, just so I can start getting more different readings out. But I do have a client that I'm about to drop in with. So I'm wishing you a beautiful day. And I will be back on Thursday on Cobra's Medicine Bag for those going through food and body image issues to give support for the Panchakarma. And I'll do another one here on Saturday. And yeah, it'll be all good. And there'll be more readings coming out this week. We're going to do the Cross Watcher reading series, which will be a lot of fun and maybe a little, just kind of a little trashy, but all in good fun. Okay. Just for fun, just for shits and giggles. So have a good day. Namaste, Angela.